172 Skyhawk, and we're going to go from Oakland County International. So let's just click on that and set as departure. And it's selected runway number 9. And we're going to go to Detroit Metro Wade County, and we're going to set as arrival. And that will bring us up a flight plan shortly when I enter IFR Low Altitude Airways for the Cessna, and we're going to pick a runway number 3, right? And now we have all our waypoints entered and our flight plan. So let's take a look at the frequency and the bearing for the runway 3 right in Detroit Metro Wade County. So I'm just going to go to flightplandatabase.com, which you can just type into your search on Google, whatever method you use, and press tools, and then under search enter the airport code, which is Kilo Delta Tango Whiskey, and press enter, and it will bring up the airport runways, some data and information for you on that airport. So you can actually create flight plans using this database, but we've already done that. So let's take a look at runway 3 right. The localizer ILS is 111.50 megahertz, and the bearing for the runway is 28.62 degrees. So we'll write that down, and we'll just close that screen. So we're ready to fly. Let's click fly. Okay, here we are at Oakland County International Airport in Michigan on a rather cloudy, overcast day, and we're ready to fly. Because we selected the runway departure, Flight Sim automatically did all the pre-flight checks for this plane for us, so we're ready to go. If you want to try that yourself sometime, it's a lengthy checklist, but fun to do, and it familiarizes you with a lot of the instruments and where they're located on the aircraft. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take a look at some of the stuff on the aircraft, some of the instruments, just to familiarize ourselves with them. Now I'm going to turn up the panel lights here a bit so we can see things a little better on a cloudy day. All right, so let's just go through some of these instruments here to familiarize ourselves. So here's the clock. There's your airspeed indicator. There's your turn coordinator. This is your attitude indicator. Here's your altimeter. This is your heading indicator. Vertical speed indicator. Your nav1 indicator, your nav2 indicator. Here's your avionics. It's your GPS screen here. I'm just going to back off a little more so we can see a little more of this stuff. There's your Hobbs meter. you can toggle on and off here. This is your yoke. So we're just going to toggle that off. Toggle that one off as well. Let's take a look down here at some of this other stuff. Mixture control, your throttle. I already mentioned the light adjustment. Your avionics bus, master battery switches, starter key. So your fuel pump. And so these are some of your lights. The beacon's on. The landing lights are on. The taxi lights are off because we're on the runway now. Nav lights on. And we're going to turn the pitot light on as well. So here we have fuel quantity gauges, engine instruments. And so that covers most of the stuff. We're going to be using a lot of this for monitoring as we're flying, but we're going to be using the autopilot. So let me just go to the autopilot here screen. Here we have the autopilot information. So we have autopilot, heading, hold, nav, approach, hold, reverse approach, back course, altitude. This is our switch for decreasing or increasing our altitude, and this will allow us to go up or down. So right off the bat, let me just set our altitude here at 3,000. So I have to use the smaller knob to get hundreds. Okay, so we have that on. And the other thing we wanted to do was set our frequency. So let's just press Control 2 so we can get this screen. Now our frequency was 111.50. This is GPS right now. You see you can change it to GPS or V localizer. So for now, let's set our frequency here. Standby frequency. Now you have to press this to do COM or VLOC. So I'm going to press that, and it just highlighted this COM. So let's do the larger wheel and set it at 111. See, that just went to 111. Smaller wheel, set that at 50. So now let's do a swap. So that becomes the active frequency, and this now becomes a standby frequency. So our comms are already set and controlled automatically because I've got that set in my settings. So I don't have to use air traffic control. So things are looking fairly good here. We can set the our heading here on our nav 1. Our bearing was 28. Put them down 10% there, 20%. All right, let's take a look outside. We're ready to go. And once we get in the air, we're going to put on the autopilot. So I'm going to release the parking brakes, Control Delete. Speed up. I'm at full throttle right now. lifts off pretty nicely around 70 knots. We'll fly straight down the runway and then make our turn. Too quickly because we'll be in a stall position. Okay, I'm going to bring up the flaps. That'll help increase our speed. Continue climbing. Okay, let's go inside the aircraft and go Control 3. And let's set on the autopilot, the nav system, and let's start climbing to our set altitude, which should be at 3,000. Yeah. Okay, so let's go outside and see how this is looking. Okay, we're turning towards our flight plan. You can see right here, we're heading and we're going to pick up the flight plan to Detroit Wade. Our speed here and see how we're doing. So now heading south. So just up here, and forgot to mention we have our compass here as well. To help us with our guidance. So basically what we're going to be doing is watching these instruments to make sure everything is fine, that our altitude is climbing to 3,000, our heading looks correct, our attitude indicator looks fine, airspeed is good. Turn coordinator looks fine. And we have our frequency set. We're on GPS right now, and we're going to hit this button. We get a little closer to pick up the localizer that we've set for the frequency of 111.5 megahertz. Basically right now we've got the plane flying itself on autopilot and climbing gently to 3,000. I have air traffic control turned off so that we can more or less fly at whatever altitude we want. We're not going to get too concerned. This will give us a good look at the terrain flying in Michigan, just around north of Detroit right now. See the subdivisions and homes and some of the lakes in the area. We've got some nice waterfront property around here. So let's go inside and look at our instruments. Everything's looking pretty good. Make sure you periodically adjust your barometric pressure. so that you're flying at the right altitude, and you can do that by pressing B on your keyboard, which I did, and there was an adjustment made. You might have seen it outside here when I pressed it. We're now really flying at almost 3,500. So let's just go in here and change this. To 3,000, and we will hit down. See if we can descend a bit until we hit that. It's going to be a little high for approach at 3,500. We can see nav. Okay, I'm going to hit the localizer now. Pressing that button. You noticed needles automatically moved here. We want stuff to line up. You see the plane is turning, and I am going to hit approach hold as well. So you can see that's on. And let's see if we pick up pick up things nicely here. We should pick up the glide slope soon. Watch our airspeed. Zoom in here a bit. Flashing lights up ahead here. Could be another airplane. Let's have a look and see how we're doing on this map. Okay, pretty good. Ready to turn towards the airport. There we go. Okay, some rather bad weather there. It's now 12:20. In the afternoon. So let's just see how this thing lines itself up. Well, you can see this line's pretty good. Well, let's watch and see how things happen here as we pick up the glide slope. Our instruments are looking good. Our speed is looking okay. It looks like we're tracking very nicely right along the ILS frequency that we picked up for the runway 3 right. So we should start descending soon. We'll just go outside and have a look at things. Rather rough weather today in the Detroit area. is October 22nd, 2020. This flight is being made. I think we can see some airport lights up ahead there. To slow down our speed, of course. So we'll put little flaps down right now. That will help increase our speed a bit. Get us ready for landing. Just going to inside and take a look at things again. Make sure everything's on. Okay. See this thing pick up the glide slopes. Coming up to our next waypoint. See, this line is dropping on our nav 1. Picked up the glide slope. So the airplane will now try and keep this line on the glide slope for us. In this rather bad weather, it's kind of nice to have these instruments working on this plane. So another reason why this plane is such a popular seller. Easy to fly. It's a little slow, but it's easy to fly and really does have some nice instrumentation. Now you can get the upgraded model with the Garmin screens in it, but this one's still fun to fly as well. So we're getting close now. I'm just going to decrease our speed a bit. Landing. Just ran across the day, and we have to take over the autopilot. Flaps down a little more. Just before landing. Especially if it's not lined up perfect with the runway, which sometimes happens. So I'm just going to decrease the speed a bit now. Just before we land, we'll go inside the cockpit. Have a look at things for the landing. Right now, everything's looking pretty good. We'll put flaps down full just before we touch down. So we get the wind blowing us off the line a little bit, but the autopilot is adjusting to that. So you can see this is lined up really nicely on our nav1 indicator. Alrighty, and I can see our speed there. Doing good. I'm just going to get it down a bit. Put down full flap shortly. And we'll try and just glide in at a nice pace before we touch down with our nose slightly up. See some other aircraft taking off and landing here. So we got it right around 90. Just going to decrease that a little bit more. Yeah, we're getting a nice approach here. We've got an aircraft in the way, but that's because we're not using air traffic control. Taking off. Okay. Going to put the flaps full down. Take off the autopilot. Just let it come down gradually. Try and hit that center line. Brake. And there's our exit markers. Right here. See if we can get Okay, so with the Cessna, you're not going to get much in the way of ground services. Fuel truck, probably. Not like with the Boeing 747 or the Airbus. You can't get a jetway connection to this plane, of course. You can request fuel supply, and you may get a fuel truck coming. But it's sometimes it doesn't come, or it takes quite a while to get there. So I'm just going to say thank you very much now for joining me on this flight, and I hope that you got some useful information out of flying the Cessna 172, and catch you next time.